Welcome everyone to the Modern Mystics podcast. I'm your host, Alana Kaivalia, and I'm really excited today to be talking with my very dear friend, as well as extraordinary accomplished yoga teacher and online course creator, Jory Serota. Jory, thank you very much for being here with me today.
Yeah, my pleasure, Alana. It's nice to have this space to connect with you.
Absolutely. We've known each other for a very, very long time, which means I've had the great privilege of watching you as your career has grown up and shifted, and you've had the same with me. I think that we can both say we've made some pretty major changes and advances over the last maybe 15 plus years we've known each other. And I wanted to bring you on because you have some really unique and special insight as a very accomplished career yoga teacher who has also moved his work online. And it's so critically important for us to have this conversation today, right now, because in 2020, we all have to do this. And I say that as an imperative. Yoga studios, by and large, they are shut currently because of the pandemic, or because of the pandemic, they won't actually be able to open their doors back up. We've seen many articles about this. There was a recent article in the New York Times talking about the wave of yoga studios just having to shut their doors. What I want your help with today, Jory, is to give our listeners, the yoga teachers and spiritual leaders, the assurance, the confidence, even some tools and direction that having a career in yoga as a spiritual leader is possible. It is possible for us to thrive, and it is possible to continue to make an impact and do our good work as long as we go where people are now, which is online. So before we dig into that too deeply, I would love for you to give people a little bit more of a background on who you are, Jory. Who are you? What do you do in the world of yoga?
Yeah, I mean that is the ultimate question here, isn't it?
Yes.
Well, I started practicing yoga back in 1997 out of sheer dumb luck. I was playing ultimate frisbee for Florida State University, and was challenged to go to a yoga class, and went, fell completely in love, and never turned around.
Mhm.
By when was it? September of 2000, I was in India spending months in an ashram studying yoga. And my career just kind of progressed from there. There wasn't really much of an option for me outside of working with the human body and working with the human psyche.
Right.
That's where it's where my passions have always lied,
Mhm.
like you.
Yes, exactly. And we're on almost the exact same timeline there. It was my thyroid disorder that brought me to yoga, but almost around the exact same time. So we've been at this for a while, as you might say.
Yeah, we have. I think it was probably 2002 or 2003 when we met
Yep.
at Omega. You were working with Jiva Mukti, and I was not much of anything yet at that point.
No, you were an extraordinary massage therapist.
Yeah, I was. I started my career in that regard. And I know that's not the intention of what we're speaking about here, but I built my way up there, worked on the professional tennis circuit for a while,
Mhm.
started helping a lot of those players with movement impairments, and built from there, really. Yeah, what were you going to say?
Well, I was going to say, when for the majority of time that we've known each other, right, both you and I have been what I would call like a career yogi,
Mm,
where we're traveling all over the place, teaching our workshops, where we're relegated to one location and several studios teaching weekly classes. We're trying to make ends meet. We're trying to make a living this way. So I'd love for you to talk a little bit more about what it was like to be a career yogi, a kamikaze yoga teacher, going to all these different places, trying to teach your work, trying to make an impact.
yeah, I mean, it's frustrating.
That's a mild way of putting it. Yeah.
Yeah, right. I
Yeah.
mean, here I was, here we are, dedicating our life to a particular, path, and going and teaching. And whether it was, a weekly yoga class that I was teaching where I would make $55 for an hour and a half,
And that's a
which you
really
and
good
I,
rate, actually.
yeah, and that's really just so sad,
Yeah.
you know, um, because of course, as you and I have discussed, an hour and a half yoga class also takes the 15 or 30 minutes travel time back and forth, plus getting there 15 minutes early and staying there 15 minutes late.
Mm-hmm.
It's really 2.5 to 3 hours of work.
Yep.
So, you couple that with increased developing skills and increased developing confidence, going and teaching in places like Bali, where you and I had both taught before. And my teaching experience over there barely paying for my trip.
Right.
So it's a really nice thing because one gets to travel. But after a period of time, which I know you've experienced too, 2, 3, 4, whatever years of this, it's like, okay, that's cool. I'm happy that I'm traveling, but I need something more than traveling to get to equal,
Right. You need to be able to actually pay your rent and make a living.
completely.
Yeah, which isn't easy when you're doing the kind of work that we were doing. And, we were doing it at a very high level. So we were doing it in such a way that, and this isn't to be boastful, this is to be realistic with all the listeners. We were doing it in such a way that many people look at and think, oh, wow, that's the way to do it. That's the yoga teacher's dream. And we can tell you at every single level of being a yoga teacher, whether it is staying put in your local community or whether it is traveling the world, teaching yoga teacher trainings, workshops, whatever, it's the same struggle. There is only so much of you that you can give and only so much time that you have to give it. And unfortunately, the industry has developed in such a way that it does not value the yoga teacher. So the people who are doing the hard work of disseminating this precious and valuable information are actually really not able to make a living that I would consider truly reflects their value. Would you say that that's accurate, Jory?
100% accurate.
Yeah. 100% accurate. And it's the sad truth. And this is the truth of, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 1 year ago. And the truth for the yoga teacher has changed dramatically right now. So what are some of the kinds of things that you see happening with your colleagues and friends in the yoga industry in 2020?
Oh, well, it's similar to what I think a lot of the yoga teachers and a lot of my colleagues have been experiencing over the years, which is like, I love doing this, but how much longer can I actually sustain it?
Right.
And of course, now with the pandemic, with everything that's going on, as you've mentioned, yoga studios are closing, teachers don't have a place to teach. The pandemic unemployment insurance, at least in the United States, has run out, and they're trying to get a new plan, which they have until tomorrow.
But also doesn't usually apply to the yoga teacher who
Correct.
often is a contractor.
That is correct. Right. A yoga teacher does not qualify for unemployment. Period.
Right. Which is an issue because if yoga studios are closed, the yoga teacher is largely unemployed.
They really are. So even more than I think has been happening in the last couple of years, yoga teachers are looking for either another way to succeed or another job.
Right. Which
is
really hard to find right now.
Which is also very hard to find right now.
And isn't it, it breaks my heart that the circumstances that are occurring with us at this time would cause someone to abandon their passion. The thing that really, sets fire to their heart, that makes them feel like they have purpose in the world. I don't, I get people will do what they have to do. Of course. And I always encourage that for sure. But if there is a way for us to maintain the connection with our passion, to make an impact with the work that we do as yoga teachers and spiritual leaders, then I really think we should explore that way. And, Jory, you and I have actually had a conversation in an interview before, right around the time you decided to move some of your work online, because it actually worked out really well for you. So we're going to chat about that. But This is before the pandemic, right? Before the incredible squeeze of the circumstances happening right now are forcing people to go online. You chose to go online a couple of years ago. Tell me, what was the impetus behind your choices for doing that?
Yeah, well, to be completely honest, there is not a single person that I need to thank more for helping me transition from a in-person live yoga teacher to an online teacher more than you.
Oh,
Uh,
thank you.
you know, your influence on me and my career has been so incredibly impactful. And I remember the moment exactly.
Really?
Because, oh yeah, yeah. I think it was either 2016, end of 2016 or early 2017, and I had been traveling for a couple of years,
Uh-huh.
and you and I hadn't spoken in 4 years or something like this, and somehow we connected, and we got on a phone call, and I was building this, you know, weekend yoga therapy seminar with techniques and strategies that wasn't just a workshop, that was aimed at yoga teachers and aimed at other movement professionals to teach them how to use movement as physical therapy, so to
Hmm.
speak.
Right.
And you were like, you might want to rethink that, buddy.
You might want to do that a little differently.
You know, exactly. And I was like, do tell. You know, and that's when you started telling me about the online businesses that you've been creating.
Mhm.
And I had heard about this a little bit, and was interested in studying it. And I continued. I went forth. I created this weekend seminar. The weekend seminar was great. I got to travel. I actually made more money than just, you know, I was used to in the past of breaking even. It was really nice. It was also a lot of work. It
Mhm.
was phenomenally stressful. Sometimes I didn't know if a course was going to be held or not, you know, based off of enrollments. Um, and overall, it was just not exactly what was making me feel good about myself.
Right.
So, you know, based off of our conversations, you guided me towards taking this weekend seminar and putting it online. And my goodness, what a incredible journey. First of
Yeah.
all, that was. You know, I think, you know, you instructed me on so many technical aspects of it,
Mhm.
but more than anything, you were my therapist and my guru and my hero and my friend and my like mother and my you know, you were everything that I could possibly need to like give me support in taking what was a 16-hour weekend training and now having ample amount of space to put it online and turning it into a 45-hour continuing education program,
Right.
you know, with 9 modules, with 75 videos, and the entire process that that takes. And I could not be more grateful for having taken that path. That course launched in, I think it was April or May or June of 2018, something like that. The launch was incredibly successful. I had a very small email list at that time, which is also something that anyone who is wanting to put their business online needs to develop. Develop it now. You know, you would always tell me, start building your list, start building your list, I don't care if you have a course yet or
Yeah.
not, start building
Doesn't
your
matter what
list,
you're doing. Always build your list.
you know? And so I did that, but even when I launched, I had a very small list and I was able to sell to a little bit over or around 3% of that list,
Uh-huh.
which, you know, the target percentage to sell to was around 2%.
Yeah.
So it was an amazing launch and I was able to continue to sell that course, and I've gone further than that at this point as well.
All right, Jory, we want to hear it though. How much did you make when you launched?
Oh. Well, first of all, let me quantify it a little bit. I had 1,500 people on my email list.
Uh-huh.
My course sold for $997.
Uh-huh.
And over the span of a week, I made $55,000.
Not too bad. $55,000 in one launch. And I want everybody to hear that, to realize that it's possible for them, and to remember that the average yoga teacher in America before the pandemic was only able to make $35,000 a year. A year. So Jory made more than 1 year's worth of an average yoga teacher salary because he launched his program online. And now, Jory, there are so many benefits to going online that you and I are very familiar with, right? We are able to reach people outside of our local area. We don't have to do it in one weekend because we are, in their town for that one weekend. They're able to actually take their time with the information. You can actually put all of the information they need into an online program because you're not constrained by time. You can actually answer more of their questions. You can give them more personalized support and touch base with them. Am I missing anything as far as the benefits of going online? Oh, and also you get to reap 100% of that reward, that revenue that comes in for your project.
That's a really good point because, as I said, when I would teach in North Carolina, $600 for the flight, $500 for the hotel, $200 for food, $500 for the rental space. There's almost $2,000 right off the bat. And even though if I make $5,000 for the weekend course, which is great, I'm still only netting $3,000 from that.
And it's taken an entire weekend of your time. And how many of those per year can you really do? I'm trying to do the math quickly in my head of 55 divided by 3. And that would essentially be like 18 weekends that you'd have to fill and pack this course in different cities around the country, around the world. That's just not possible for any one single yoga teacher.
Yeah, and I hope everybody realizes how quickly you did the math there. That was very impressive.
I do actually have, some background in physics, so I can't. Math is okay for me. Math is a strength, oddly. But thanks for that. I'm kind of blushing right now. Appreciate it. Yeah. So, we understand the benefits of going online. I'm really grateful as your friend that you recognize this and hustle to do this several years ago. And you've been doing this now for several years. Why do you think it's even more critical now for our fellow yoga teachers to get their businesses online?
Yeah, I mean, if they want to make a living, it's apparently the only way. First of all, unless you live in New Zealand, Thailand, Taiwan, or some other country who has contained the virus.
Right.
But going forward, who knows what's going to happen in the world?
Yeah.
So putting this online, again, to emphasize the point that you said before, you're able to create whatever you want. Mm-hmm. You don't have to fit it into a time schedule. Mm-hmm. You don't have to teach it in this way or that way. It's all there. It's quote unquote permanent. It's online. It's there for life. And it's an incredibly viable way for yoga teachers to reach a larger community.
Yeah.
And to have an impact.
Absolutely. I can kind of hear the objections right now of listeners, who are like, oh, well, yeah, but Jory was teaching for such a long time, he already had a following, or, maybe Jory already had some like tech expertise that I don't have. I couldn't do it. What were some of the big obstacles you had to overcome in order to make this happen? I mean, I know because I was there and I watched you do it, but from your perspective, what were some of the obstacles that you had to overcome, and, why were they so worth overcoming?
Yeah, great question. Well, first of all, the obstacle I did not have to overcome was that I know who I am. I know who I am as a yoga teacher. I know who I am as a communicator, and etc. So this whole aspect of finding a niche or niche, however you want to say it, I did not have to stress about that. And that's first and foremost in anybody who's wanting to create their online business. So I was grateful in that way. But in terms of having a massive following, and especially in terms of understanding the technical aspects of putting a course online, I had a big whopping 0 level of understanding.
Right.
And that is the thing that was so stressful for me. And that is the thing that you helped coach me so much with, both through our conversations and through the Upward Facing Business Academy, which has so much information about, which websites to go to, which articles to read, which this and that, it's like, there's so much information.
Templates for, copying, programs to use, discounts for those programs, interviews with the founders of those programs.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a full-on experience there.
Yeah.
And honestly, even having that, I do admit the process of the first one was stressful.
Mm-hmm.
You have to learn. I use Teachable for my courses. I believe you do as well.
Yes,
You
I
know,
do.
you have to learn Teachable. You have to have a CRM that works good with all of your marketing and all of your customers. There's so many aspects. The editing process of the videos. My first course was massive. There were 75 videos.
Yeah, that's a lot. It's a lot. For all of our listeners, you don't have to start that big.
Don't start that big, please, please,
Yeah.
please. I'll tell you guys right now. I was in Thailand a couple months ago. I just returned back to the United States beginning of September. And at the end of Thailand, I filmed a new course, or at the end of Thailand, at the end of my time in Thailand, I filmed a new course. It's a free low back therapy course,
Nice.
that I'm going to be releasing in the next week or two. In total, the course is 5 years.
Right. Done.
And give it a little bit more of a window. Uh, the videographer that I hired in Thailand totally failed. He was absolutely miserable. And we had to do a whole reshoot. I did completely with my own cameras, microphones, lights, everything.
Right.
Okay. Now, I didn't edit it. That's a whole other level. But the point that I'm saying with this is that having this course be 5 videos, I shot it in one day. I sent it to my editor. He sent it back to me. I did the editing in one day of what he sent back. The process at this point is so much easier than what it was.
Yes, absolutely.
So for anybody, I recommend not making a massive course like I did. Take something smaller. Even my second course was 4 modules and 27 videos.
Uh-huh.
That would have been fine.
Yeah, totally. Well, look, you're ambitious, and I know that there are some listeners who are also ambitious, and so was I. My very first course was my 500-hour teacher training program. Right. I don't recommend that by any means. But look, I think what we're saying here is get into this any way that you can. Just begin, just start, because the only way, number one, you can reach people right now anyway is online. Number two, the future is uncertain. We don't know if studios will even open back up. Many of them will not survive the pandemic. That's what we're seeing coming out in the news right now. I want everybody listening to have an understanding, to have a plan, to realize that if this is a passion for you, if this is a calling for you, you have to get your work out there. And success is not just measured by things like $55,000 launches. Success is measured by how much impact we actually have in someone's life. And if you're not online right now, we can't have an impact. So it's so, so important. I really hope that people listening feel the call to do this. I mean, I've been shouting this from the rooftop for years, ever since I launched my Upward Facing Business Academy, but I've been really, really focused on telling people this message this whole year because, the side effects of the pandemic and social distancing are real. Psychologists right now are talking about things called like pandemic fatigue. People are actually getting tired of the consistent trauma of the impact of the pandemic. They're getting tired of being separated. They're experiencing things like loneliness, boredom, apathy, anxiety, depression. Guess what yoga helps? Apathy, boredom, lonely, anxiety, depression. It helps these specific things that people are going through right now. They need you now more than ever. You have got to put yourself out there, and this is the way to do it. And I know that for many yoga teachers, the mentality is like, oh, but I just want to teach yoga. Yeah, I know you do, but there's a lot more to it than that. Even if you just wanted to teach yoga, a year ago, you still would have had to produce a resume, go to an audition at a studio, be a part of that studio, go through the rigmarole of putting yourself out there. What I like to tell people in my Upward Facing Business Academy is that the development of your spiritual business, and as a yoga teacher, whether you like it or not, you are an entrepreneur. You are a small business owner. There's no way of getting around that. That developing your online business, yourself as an entrepreneur, it is a part of your spiritual practice. There are parts of our spiritual practice, and I know Jory knows this so well because we've been doing this practice together for almost 2 decades. Well, for, yeah, at least 2 decades. There are parts of an actual spiritual practice that you don't want to do. You don't want to sit longer in your meditation. You don't want to do the shadow work. There's so much of our spiritual practice that in order for us to evolve, it's the parts we don't want to do that actually help us to grow the most. And I really see the business development as a part of that. There are going to be parts of putting your business online that thrill you and excite you. For me, it is the content creation. And there are parts that are not going to thrill or excite you, but it doesn't mean that you should skip them or avert, your eyes from them, push them down, ignore them. It does not mean that you should say, oh, I can't go online, I shouldn't go online. You must. I'm sorry, Jory, I'm so passionate about this.
No, it's just great. I'm like, this is great. I'm not going to say anything else.
Well, I wanted to also get your take on it because I know how fervent you are with your spiritual practice. I mean, you and I have had many late night conversations about shadow work, digging into the challenging sides. And like, I do think of the business, I think of my business as my spiritual practice, as a big part of my spiritual practice. This is how I get my passion out there. This is how I connect with people. The measure of how effective I'm being as a yoga teacher is the happiness of my students around the world. So will I sit down and write yet another email for them at 2:00 in the morning? Of course I will. Will I listen to the feedback I'm getting about the content? Of course I will. Will I develop more programs? Of course I will. Do I want to do all those things? Not necessarily, but that's not the point, right? The point is the impact. So, what do you think about all that? Your business as your spiritual practice. What's your take?
I think it's absolutely key and vital. You and I were the same. In our 20s, we would practice anywhere from 2 to 5 hours of asana practice every single day.
Yeah.
And
to be 20 again.
Say it again.
Oh, to be 20 again.
Yeah, right. That would be nice, actually.
Yeah.
But you and I were very spiritual. We were practicing, this is the path. This is what you do. We're going to attain enlightenment, blah, 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 blah. I will tell you that I practice less asana now than I ever have in my life. And spiritually, psychologically, and emotionally, I have more together than I've ever been in my life.
Yeah.
Putting this business online has been a type of completion for myself that just practicing and teaching live classes was not.
Right.
My perspective of what it is to be a spiritual person is so much different than it was back in the mid-20s and even mid-30s.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm 42 now.
I was waiting for you to say that. Yeah. 40s look great on you though,
Yeah.
And I think we're just getting better and better at life. And I wish that there were so many places in my past, and I don't regret any of the trajectory that has gotten me to where I am now, but there are so many times in my past that I just wish someone would have told me. I just wish someone would have told me in my early 20s, you don't have to push yourself so hard physically, right? I wish somebody had mentioned that. I wish somebody had mentioned in my early 30s, you don't have to burn yourself out teaching as much as possible. I wish someone had mentioned in my mid 30s that you don't have to travel 50% of your time and miss your family and friends just to scrape by. I wish somebody had mentioned these things. You know, I wish someone had been there for me when I first started putting my business online in 2014 and 2015 to show me the ropes, to tell me what to do so that I didn't have to bump into so many walls and try for over 2 years to actually figure out how to get this done. You know, and that's why I have the Business Academy. That's why I do coach people, because I want to give them as much of a leg up as possible. I want to be there to support them, you know, and help them realize that this is actually a big part of their spiritual path, especially if they consider themselves to be a teacher.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you and I have both spoken about there's nothing like waking up in the morning and opening up your email and seeing that you made $1,000 while you were sleeping. You know? It's like,
That's,
it's like,
yeah.
and I think there's many people who were like, oh, well, money is not important to me and money is not the purpose of it. And you're right, money is not the purpose of it, and money is what makes the world go round.
Right.
You know?
And you know, one of the things that I've realized with my business is how much unbelievable stress I was under as a
Mm,
career yoga
mm,
teacher,
that's it. Yeah.
overdrawing my accounts, unable to make my rent for months at a time, scraping by, being
Right.
angry at the few
Right.
students who showed up because it meant I got less of a paycheck for that hour of a class. You know,
Yeah.
I looking back, I mean, I could have never realized how much stress I was under because I didn't know any different.
Mm,
But looking back, I don't wish that level of stress, poverty, lack, struggle on anyone. Money issues F you up. They F you
mm,
up specifically in your root chakra. They destabilize you. They make
mm.
it difficult to do anything else, whether you want to admit it or not. That is just the way it works. And I want every one of our colleagues, Jory, to stand on stable ground, to have what they need. Because when you have what you need financially, you are freer to teach. You can teach from your heart when you're not struggling. You can be generous with your gifts when you're not struggling. When you wake up in the morning and see you've made $1,000 overnight and you know your rent is taken care of, that allows you to breathe freely for the rest of the day. It is powerful. It is not scary. And it is absolutely every yoga teacher and spiritual leader's right to make an extraordinary living. And I wish that for them.
Yeah. Yeah. Same here. And I don't know how to put this into words, but there is nothing spiritual about not taking the steps necessary to create a fulfilled and happy life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that that's the point of all this. You know, I think for a long time, you and I thought the pinnacle of being a yogi was to sit in an ashram enlightened and, you know,
Yeah.
I don't know,
Yeah.
just meditate for 22 hours a day. It sounds really freaking boring right now. But I think what we're realizing is that the pinnacle of being a yogi is the ability to truly, truly enjoy this existence, to truly, truly just be at ease, right? Sthira Sukham Asanam. The perfect asana is the one in which you're comfortable. And I'm comfortable in my seat right now. Are you comfortable in yours?
I'm pretty
You
comfortable.
know, this is the kind of comfort that we want to create even as yoga teachers, and the work that we do is so important and it is so valuable and it should be valued appropriately.
Yeah. Agreed. Agreed. And just to say, our comfort is not lackadaisical either.
No.
Our comfort comes from hard work. Our comfort comes from dedication. It comes from discipline. And it comes from having a more thorough perspective or viewpoint on what we need to create comfort. You know, I think it was, I think Iyengar, when he passed away, before he passed away, he said, I'm happy to pass away because I've done what I need to do in this life.
Oh, I love that. That's a good
Okay?
thing to hold on to.
Yeah. So,
So, Jory, I so appreciate this conversation, and I hope all of our listeners are inspired by the work that you've done to get your teachings online. And you have actually created really incredible programs. I mean, your teachings were always incredible, but now people have the opportunity to enjoy them literally wherever they're at in the world. So, where can people find more of you? Where can they connect with you? How do they learn more about what you do?
yeah, thanks. My website is appliedyogaintegration.com. My business is Applied Yoga. You can find me on Instagram just under my name. I recently changed it. It's just Jory Serota. And my Facebook page is Jory Serota Yoga and NKT. NKT is the type of body work that I still do teach. So you can get my business page on there. And yeah, hop on my website. There's some free stuff you guys can download if you're interested. And I'll look forward to connecting with anybody.
I love that. And Jory every now and again hops into my teacher training to give us some anatomy updates and wisdom as well, because we so value his incredible knowledge on that subject. So Jory, as always, thank you so much for joining me today on the podcast. It was really wonderful to have you here.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure to be here as well.